emotions are making you broke, most people make their financial decisions based off of greed, off of fear, off of impatience. Does this sound familiar? And it can lead to things like impulse buying, like being nervous about the stock market so that you take your money out when it's dropped, or even buying stuff on credit cards that you know you can't afford. This is where Stoicism comes into play. So Stoicism is an ancient Greek philosophy, and it's based upon self-control, understanding your emotions and not leading with them, having resilience in the face of adversity. And when it comes to personal finance, this can totally help us because it's about having discipline, about having a long-term approach and not leading with our emotions right now. So if you feel like you're someone who's just overspending and they get to the end of the month and they don't have any money left over to save, this will help you out. The first point I want to chat about is to control what you can and accept what you can't. None of us can really figure out when there's going to be a massive surge of inflation again, or when there's going to be an economic dip. But what we can control is our spending. We can control what we pay with our card and what we pay with our cash. If we're going into a store, we can control how many things we pick up, depending on how much money we know we have. And similarly with saving, we can control what we save every month. So if there is an economic crisis in the future, we will have built up a pot of money there for ourselves. But even though we know this, sometimes we just don't do it. Sometimes there's shiny things in a window you just want to buy. And this is an impulsive behavior. So what you really need to control there is your spending habits. Understand that if you're consistently saving £300 every month and you're building up an emergency fund for yourself, you are more likely to succeed in the future if there is an economic downturn, if there is, layoffs at work. You'll have a pot of money there for your future self that you would have been consistently putting money into. So if you focus on disciplined financial habits rather than worrying about the future and worrying about things that we don't know what's going to happen, okay? And in terms of emergency funds, you will need 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So do you guys currently have that now? Let me know down below. How much money do you have in your emergency fund? Is it a big fat zero? If you were made redundant tomorrow, how would you survive? Would you have to move back with parents, or would you have to rely on friends and family or credit cards? Do you really want that for yourself? Are you building up materialistic items in your home? Maybe you've got loads of clothes, maybe you've got loads of shoes, or maybe you have a couple of cars outside, but you don't have any money for yourself as if there's an emergency that happens. So really evaluate, where you're putting your energy and where you're putting your time. And yes, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen with this Trump presidency, okay? It's crazy out there. But what you can control is consistently putting money into a savings pot to help your future self out if they need it. The second point is, what does money mean to you? If you got given $5,000 today, okay, let's say you got a surprise bonus at work, right? What would you spend that money on? Would you throw it away on maybe a very nice Chanel handbag, which is about $4,000? Would you save it and maybe invest it and make £500 on that $5,000 in the future? Or would you buy a load of luxury items? Like, where does your mind go if you just got given $5,000 right now? This will really tell a lot about who you are and how you feel about money, and the financial decisions that you would make if you got given a large sum. Money can be used as a tool. I recently read this quote which really stuck with me, and it said, "Rich people buy time and poor people buy things." So which one are you? Are you A or B? If you got given money, would you hold on to it? Would you invest it? Would you buy an asset that makes money for you? Or would you spend it on a luxury item that you felt like you couldn't afford before, and then you just blow it all on something that's a liability that doesn't make you money and will probably make you happy for a few weeks or a few months, but after a few years it'll probably lay at the bottom of your wardrobe? If you avoid unnecessary luxury spending and steer clear of lifestyle inflation, which basically means the more money you get, the more things you buy. So if you got a promotion, for example, let's say you got an extra £500 every month, which is doable, if you got a promotion. Would you spend that 500 on more brunches, on maybe more Ubers, on maybe a nicer place, on maybe a car loan? Or would you invest it? Would you save the difference and live the same life that you had previously before you had more income? Living below your means will really help you out in the future and help to build that pot of money there for yourself. It's about long-term thinking, not short-term gain. So if you're someone who has a lot of stuff and they're trying to be better with that, maybe be a bit more minimalist. Look inside your bedroom. How many things in there do you actually use? The 80-20 rule always helps me out. And what this means is basically we tend to use about 20% of our stuff and 80% just kind of goes to waste. So if you think about your clothes, for example, do you mainly wear the same few t-shirts on rotation, the same pair of jeans because you love them and they fit you right? and then everything else in the wardrobe you just don't use. So if that falls into your world, how about decluttering the things that you don't need or that you don't use? Because this will help practice minimalism and really practice what you need in your life, and not to fall into things like consumerism, to keep buying stuff on Amazon, to keep buying the latest trends. What do you solely need, and focus on that. If you adopt more of a frugal mindset rather than just buying items the whole time, it will really change how you view the world. And I don't mean being cheap. I recently did a video on this, which I'll pop down in my description below. But essentially, being cheap is not the same as being frugal. So for example, you can't see them now, but I'm sitting in my Lululemon leggings. Now, if you were to buy these in the shop, they are expensive. I think they're about 100, 120 maybe. But I've had these leggings for the last 5 years and I live in them every weekend. If I was to buy a cheap pair that were like £20, I would probably have to have bought multiple pairs of those in the last 5 years, because they would go out of shape, or they go discolored, or they go weird and bobbly. So I've invested in something that's a really good quality material, something that's lasted me years. I always get compliments on these even 5 years later, and I know I'm going to keep wearing them for the next few years. So it's about understanding, what quality things you can have in your life, and not to just focus on frivolous things and keep buying more stuff, but focus on quality. If you really think about yourself, are you constantly seeking more? Or are you happy with what you have? Do you ever practice gratefulness? And if not, maybe jot down in a notebook every morning, hey, what are the 3 things I'm most grateful for? For me, it's like, I'm really grateful that I get to live in London. I'm really grateful that I have a job. And I'm really grateful that my health is on the incline. So once we start to focus on, hey, what are we happy about now? We can kind of practice that muscle that we don't need more things in our life to make us happy. I recently read a quote as well that said, happiness is about results without expectation. And that really rings true, because if you're buying, let's say, a handbag, you finally got that bonus at work and you're finally buying that expensive handbag, right? Do you really feel truly happy once you've bought it? Yes, there'll be a spike of, oh my God, I can't believe I got this Chanel handbag, right? But is it truly making you happy in your life? Or are you going to seek out maybe a Balenciaga bag, maybe a Louis Vuitton handbag in the future? Are you constantly seeking for more? When are you truly grateful for what you have, and let the happiness of that ring true? The 4th point that I want to chat about is to prepare for hardship and embrace discomfort. We're in a world now where you can buy stuff at the click of a button, okay? We don't even have to think about things on Amazon and we buy them. So if you try and embrace discomfort, maybe hold off on buying stuff. The 3-day rule really helps with this, to delay gratification and not be so overwhelmed that you have to buy everything that you see on sale, okay? So the 3-day rule is basically, let's say you see a beautiful coat in a shop, okay? And it's £200. Instead of buying it instantly there and then, you wait 3 days. And if after 3 days you're like, man, I really need that coat, I have no coats at all. Or after 3 days, maybe you're like, I've got loads of coats at home, I don't need another thing. So it puts that kind of boundary in place to say, hey, you can't purchase this for 3 days. This helps with online shopping to prevent like instant buying when you see a sale, but also when you're in person. Yes, we've all been in shops where we're like, oh my God, this jumper is half price and it's so beautiful. But do we ever stop and think, do I need this thing? Is it going to make me happy? Do I need more stuff in my life? Or can I be more minimalist with the stuff that I do have? When you prepare yourself for hardship, if something terrible was to happen, like let's say you do lose your job, these things happen. If you've been able to prepare yourself to not spend instantly when you see something to give you joy, that means when you're in a situation which is crap, okay? If you lose your job, it's crap. But then you'll be preparing yourself there for resilience, which is this Stoicism that I spoke about at the start. If you're constantly just buying stuff to bring you joy, if you lose your job, you're going to just keep buying stuff or buying more takeaways because you feel rubbish about yourself. But if you train that muscle before it happens, it will really help your bank balance and help your mental health as well. The next point is for the investors of the world here. Now, I was super new to investing a few years ago, which people are always surprised about because I've worked in finance for 10 years. But to be honest, I didn't grow up in a family that was into investing. I didn't know a thing about it. And it wasn't something that anything was spoken about with my friends either. And it was during 2020, I think, that I literally stumbled across a video by John Bogle, who's the founder of Vanguard. And he was doing an interview about investing and about compound growth. And it was just a total game changer in my mind of like, you can make your money work for you and you don't have to work for that money. Do you know what I mean? So let's say, for example, you put in £200 every month into an investment account. And we say usually about 8% growth is what you should expect to see in S&P 500. Now it might be less, it might be more, but if we stay with that example of 8%, if you left that in there for 10 years and constantly put in £200 every month, this is how much money you would have. And this is how much interest has gathered from that money. So the interest that compounds over time is basically free money, and the money there is working for you in the background. So if you're new to investing, you should really look into it. Of course, it's important to know where your money is going and to understand that your capital can be at risk. But if you have a long-term strategy, like the Stoics of the world, try and think of the long term. If you're only using that money for when you're older, you will ride a lot of the highs and the lows. So if there is another pandemic, or if there is another, housing crisis, you'll ride those dips if you leave it in for a longer period of time. So do you use wealth as a tool, or do you just use it for luxury items? Time is our most valuable asset. So if you can literally pay a cleaner £25 an hour so that you can work to gain £100 in that hour, that is a better use of your money than if you were just to buy something frivolous like a takeaway. If you use your wealth to support a meaningful life and to really understand your values and how you want to live, do you want to retire early? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to give the kids, the best life they ever had and live in the country and have a beautiful house? Your wealth can do that for you. So if you really calm down with the luxury item spending, calm down with the overspending, focus more on minimalism, and really understand where your mindset is with money and how do you feel about money? Because often it comes down to our mind rather than how much money we're bringing in. If you found this useful, I did 2 videos that are very similar to this, which I'll pop them here. But until then, guys, I tend to post 2 videos a week, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.